Make sure you keep that same energy. Make sure you keep that same energy. Make sure you keep that same energy. Make sure you keep that same energy.
Mike G coming through the crowd raw. Big dog, you don't really want to feel these claws. See, God loves me anyway despite these flaws. So I gotta get a little buck while yeehaw. My God giving y'all the blessing, so I never tap out. No time for stressing. I'm confessing that I'm still learning lessons. When I get knocked down, get up stepping, cause I know how my blessings flow. Started from the ground down to the tiptoe. Holy Spirit, you the one that miss this flow, cause I'm talking about you and the whole trio. The Father's on top and they call me mijo. For my Latino, this Jesucristo. My God's bilingual, so if you didn't know, I'ma speak English, mi amigo.
You keep that same energy. Make sure 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 you keep that same energy.
Stripes official, taking off like a missile. Yeah, I'm validated, but it ain't by no people. Ain't no number two, what it look like a pencil. God drew on the plan, then gave me the stencil. Slide, you know I run with the pride. All of my homies some lying, all of them listen to God. Never gonna be my demise, even with pressure applied. Even with concrete on my name, yeah, I'm permanent. Set the record straight, put a permanent. If the bridge built on lies, yeah, I'm burning it. If you at peace with your captain, I'm disturbing it. Yeah, concrete on my name, yeah, I'm permanent. Okay, concrete on my name, yeah, I'm permanent. Okay, concrete on my name, yeah, I'm permanent. Yeah, I'm permanent. Yeah, I'm permanent. Okay, nail to the ground, 10 toes down, never should keep it in 2K. Got it from the dust, but it ain't sweet, never should keep it in Kool-Aid. Pick me out the spot of Mimic Martin. Know it got me planted in the garden. Started with my dogs, came out barking. Started fasting, came out starving. I keep going to the kids lit. If it was about me, I would've been quit. Misunderstood, I'm a misfit, tryna dish healing, but the kids sick. Bite the bullet if you gon' bite it in the darkest of moments. I get delighted, man, it be in the night when I get ignited. Say a prayer, let it fly like it's autopilot, yes. Come about
top notch, skipping squares, hopscotch. Been like this is baby stages. Got she got on Oshkosh, pull up in a drop top.
Not a whip, that just mean that the sun on me. Walk was dirty, had the mud on me. Now I wash clean, got the suds on me. Concrete on my name, yeah, I'm permanent. Set the record straight, put a permanent.
It's what you make out of it. I buy my crackers and cheese, Ritz. All of my homies gon' dive, blitz. Hotter than pepper cayenne, sheesh. I been up out of my mind, release. You get to waste of my time, capiche? Bye-bye, I throw the deuces.
Hey, how y'all doing? It's Rick Sincere with MTMV Sports, man. I'm geek, blessed, overjoyed to be joined today by Mr. Brian H. Waters, the host of the Wrestling Wrealm, Breaking Through Glass Ceilings, the associate producer of Mack Mania. Just one of the biggest voices on Twitter and the Twitter sphere, right, as far as wrestling is concerned. I'm gonna tell y'all what happened. I saw him talking about his Mount Rushmore in wrestling, right? And at that point, I immediately went to the DMs. I said, hey, man, we got to have a conversation. We have to talk. And he responded positively to that, and I was so excited about it. How you doing today, sir?
I'm good, man. Appreciate you having me. Man, I was jamming to the music.
Man, I'm blessed by those guys, man. When I heard that joint, like keep that same energy, I was like, I gotta do that. I gotta add that, man. Yo, let's talk, man. I need to know at what point in your life, when it happened, when did you fall in love with professional wrestling?
Birth. Prior. No, it's true story. My mother said that when she was pregnant with me, I was kicking when every time wrestling came on. So about in the 8th month, 9th month, she was on bed rest, and my dad and granddad and uncle would leave wrestling. Now, mind you, this is 1986, so everybody doesn't have a remote, so you had to get up and change the channel. And she hated wrestling growing up because that's all my grandfather and my uncles would watch. And then she got hooked. She was watching Hulk Hogan, and the next thing you know, she got reeled into the stories. And that's when just every time it came on, I was kicking her stomach, and she said, "Oh, this is a boy." So that's when I became a fan. Now, growing up, I after I was born, they would sit there and I would watch it with them, and I just got hooked. And shout out to my Uncle Troy. He's about 11 years older than me, and he's somebody who he was more like a big brother versus an uncle. So every time he, we was talking about the belts collection, he had like this one leather belt, and I would always walk around. So like we would wrestle, and every time I was like, "Oh, he bringing out the belt. This is a big night. This is a big match." And but he was the one who like recorded wrestling for me and bought the video games, and I would watch it with him. And then same with my uncle Mike, right? He rest in peace. He would order the pay-per-views all the time. And then my parents, they didn't really like crowd, so both of them would order the pay-per-views. My dad will watch it here and there. Like he came over during Kofi Mania, and I couldn't go, but it was like the perfect show because my kids was here, my boy, my co-host Dwayne, my little cousin, who was my Uncle Mike's son, who like if there was a torch, I would be passing it to him. He's 12 years younger than me. My dad was here. My uncle Troy, who got me into wrestling, he was here. So like, and my boy Blake, who he was booking for WSU wrestling when I was working there, doing photos for CZW and stuff. Like, so all of us was here in this house, and it was like everybody who had like some sort of influence of me in this, or in my kids' case, I'm passing on the influence to them. They were all here, and we all watched like WrestleMania 35 together. But yeah, so I've been literally a fan my entire life.
Dude, those are special moments, man. That's a special moment. Y'all, hey, wait, let me get this right. Did y'all just have like an epic football game not too long ago?
Oh, you just went there. Oh man. Oh, that wasn't in the pre-production meeting.
I heard you had an epic day, my man.
Hey, NXT came on last night, and we might have Gargano. We saw Toxic Attraction lose. We saw him making a Braun Breaker. I wish his last name was Steiner, but But yeah, there was something that happened on the gridiron. Referees making up penalties. That was a pass interference call that would have been an interception, but man, who knows? Maybe my guy wouldn't have tore his pec if that wouldn't have happened.
Man, yo,
must be a Steelers fan.
Yo, okay. So let me ask you this question. Like, how do you get into covering wrestling, creating content, right? Around the profession? How'd that happen for you?
So for me, it was 2010, after my Uncle James had died. I went over to my aunt's house, go see how she was doing, etc. And my cousins was over there, and they lived there. And my older cousin, he and I one day afterwards, a couple of days later, I was just calling check on him. He just lost a stepfather, seeing how he was doing. So we started talking about wrestling. He started talking about stuff he was seeing on the internet and how he ain't like it. And I was like, well, we can do something where we can kind of combat this. He said, what you mean? I said, well, we can create a wrestling show. And we created the show Bear and B-Dub, which if you search hard enough on Twitter, you can find. It's YouTube you can find. But so that was going well. But then he got into trouble. And as he was getting in trouble, it was like right as we were starting to hit our peak, right? At the time. And then I went back to school. I was supposed to be a 1-year break in between community college and undergrad. But it'll be a 3-year break. Went to Morgan State University. And so the first semester in my communications research class, I did a project talking about how to measure statistics from like a YouTube show, etc. Or a Facebook page. That's what it was. Like Facebook, how we would measure the research process, whatever. Didn't think nothing else about it afterwards. The next semester, we was in a television production class, and my friend Danny was sitting next to me. So we was introducing ourselves, and she says, and he has a wrestling show. And I was like, ain't time to talk about that right now. And he has wrestling shots. It's not time to talk about that right now. So I hear somebody in the back. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Huh? Ain't nothing wrong with that at all. I turn around, and this guy who used to play basketball, standing about 6'7", and that was the real Dwayne Allen. And I was like, "Oh, you like wrestling?" He's like, "Absolutely." I said, "Oh, okay. Well, here's the card to the show, whatever." So he went home, looked at the show, said, "Man, it was good content, man, but y'all, could have did this, that, and the other." So we started talking. Next thing you know, every day we was talking wrestling. And I remember having a WrestleMania party that year, and I just asked him too late because somebody else had went to another party. But throughout the rest of the year, that semester, spring of 2011, all we was doing was talking wrestling. And I remember it was like, There it is. That's my new co-host. So I told my wife, well, she was my girlfriend at the time, but I said, I found my new coach. She was like, you can't replace him. I said, your cousin. I said, no, I'm telling you, this guy is good. This, that, and the other. And sure enough, we sat down, we planned everything. July 1st, we launched the Wrestling Wrealm somewhere around that time. We did our first show, I believe it's Wrestling Matters. And yeah, we've been working ever since. We have some, a couple breaks here and there. At one point, like a 3-year break. I want to say like 2015 to 2017 with maybe a show here and there or an appearance. Like shout out to the Flex Zone. They would bring us on their show, kind of keeping the brand alive. We was doing a lot of social media stuff. Part of it was because I went to Connecticut to work at ESPN for 2 years. Then coming back, he was coaching basketball. So we, was just trying to figure that out. And this year we launched earlier this year, right after the Royal Rumble, we launched the Wrestling Wrealm Now podcast. So we kind of do things. And then we also had like a bunch of the YouTube shows on deck, which I would say like this 10th year, even though now things have kind of got busy for both of us, we was able to be productive more than we had the way we kind of wanted to.
Man, congratulations. It's been, you said 10 years at this point, right?
Years of the Wrestling Wrealm.
Yo, so, okay. We're going to get into like the history of wrestling at some point, right? We'll dive in because that's kind of where a lot of people are, right?
Yeah.
But I need to know right now, right? What are some of the most intriguing storylines for you, right? Like as somebody who's watching, somebody who's covering it, right? And you're producing content around it. What are some of the most intriguing storylines in professional wrestling right now, regardless of brand?
Oh, okay. So obviously WWE right now, to me, there's nobody better in this business than Roman Reigns. He has the potential to be better than The Rock at this point in wrestling. Now, movie stars, I'm pushing it if I say that, which I have said that before, but the more I think about it, that might be pushing it. Wrestling wise, when you think about it, right? Rock was really there from 96 to 2003. Really, 2000. We're gonna give him 2003, the beginning, and maybe with a couple like 2011 through 13, right? But he wasn't like active, so he was so dynamic, but it was a small period. Roman Reigns, for him to his merchandise to do better than John Cena's, and he's a heel, that right there showed me like, wow. Now, granted, inflation and all that stuff, but he's a needle mover. So I think he has a potential to be, but right now, so anything he does, like SmackDown, I'm tuned in. On the AEW side, I want to get invested in their champion, but I'm invested because my favorite of all time, Bryan Danielson, is in there, but I'm not invested at Adam Page. But and I'm not the biggest CM Punk fan. I'm glad he's back. I feel it's good for the business because he has a fan following, so shout out to them. But I think with him and MJF, they kind of got my attention, right? I'm interested to see where they go with this and whatnot. I'm also interested to see what happens really when a lot of these contracts are up. I mean, these no compete clauses are up. Wow, the releases were horrible, and I don't really like getting into it too much, especially because you're talking about people's livelihoods. It's going to breathe. We're going to see. This is going to be crazy, but we're going to see how good a lot of people are, right? Because we're going to see them have an opportunity to reinvent themselves. Can they move the needle on the indies, right? Will they take too many bookings? Or will they not take too many where when they go, people will go see them? It really puts the fan base because all the people on the internet complaining, oh, this name move this is that. Okay, put your money where your mouth is, right? That's the reason why WWE don't cater to the IWC. The IWC, as we can see with AEW, doesn't move the needle. They just loud. It's the fans that's with the parent with the two kids because like for me, if I go to a show and I pay for the ticket, I gotta pay for 3. Then I gotta buy t-shirts. That's what moves the needle. That's the reason why WWE is always gone with the that fan base, So that's what I'm interested in seeing. I'm interested in seeing CCW. They just crowned their first women's champion, Colin King. So I'm interested. I hope I said her name right. I'm interested to see where they go with there. Obviously, I'm also the social media manager for Amber Rodriguez. So obviously, I'm biased. Interested. Well, I ain't gonna say. I know. I'm interested to see which promoter is gonna pull the trigger and use her. because I know with the Mad Esthetician gimmick, which we just dropped the video, official music video. Shout out to John Kiernan, who does a lot of wrestling themes. He did the theme music for that, and I produced the video and put together the clips to go with the music. So I'm interested to see which promoters use her right, especially a lot of the black promoters because they like, oh, is she black? Is she Puerto Rican? She's both. So I'm interested to see that. But and then I'm also, like I said, I want to see what Impact Wrestling is going to do. They always like hanging on by a thread, right? They're like bad carpet, but they won't go away. They've been around longer than WCW. And I will say that to me, the partnership with AEW is forgotten about now, and it could have been so much more. I wish they would have put the women's matches, had Britt Baker versus Deonna Purrazzo or some of those matches. I just would have did it a lot differently. So those are a lot of the things I'm interested to see where wrestling moves moving forward.
You said Roman Reigns has the potential to be better than The Rock, right? And you explained it because of the short burst, right? There's a short burst for The Rock, even though he's kind of made his appearances. He'll leave and come back, do a little match, and do something to promote somebody or to get somebody over, like he did several times with Roman Reigns, right? He'll come in, try to get him over, right? When he was, yeah, you know what I mean. So, my question is, does Roman? Is Roman starting to develop those mic skills, those promo skills? And you can see that in this whole this new Roman Reigns heel turn. But in your opinion, is he getting to the point where he's starting to deliver memorable all-time promos?
I wouldn't call them memorable all-time promos, right? Only because he's not saying stuff like The Rock was funny. And that's what made The Rock's promos. Like, you could say, what was your favorite Rock promo? Because he was a comedian, essentially. We all think about the Billy one, with Billy Gunn. And he prayed, and just the way he delivered that when Chris Jericho first came out. Or the Armageddon Hell in the Cell promo. I don't think he's doing it. Like, I don't think John Cena delivered memorable promos. I think he delivered punchlines. And I think some of the raps were memorable. But but for the moment, I think they were good. And I think that's what Roman Reigns does. For those moments, when he talked about Missionary and John Cena, that was funny for that moment. But even the work he did with his cousin, that was that was funny, and it was like personal, but like everybody could relate, so I don't know if he'll deliver memorable promos, but to me it feels like this feels real a lot of times. And all that stuff he was saying before, he felt forced. He felt like, oh man, especially when he said succotash. It's like, come on, what are you doing? Now it feels like, okay, we can get this is what it's kind of like. Remember when The Rock first turned heel and they gave him a hot mic? It's kind of like that way with Roman, even though they didn't have to give him a hot mic necessarily. Like, if we want to be honest, he doesn't need Paul Heyman to cut the promos. Paul Heyman's there adds a layer to the character because he always like bowed him, my tribal chief, and stuff like that. But he doesn't need him to cut the promos because he can do it himself. Brock couldn't really do it himself. Like, we looking at Brock now, he talks and it's funny. But if he was a heel, it'd be like, what you say is just certain things,
I feel like, okay, cool. So now let's ask this question, because we did talk about some of the storylines, right? So my question is, how do you believe? Like, because you can go back far, like, based on what we talked about, you can go back really far. So in your opinion, how do these current storylines stack up to the Attitude Era, the NWO storylines, right? The whole WWE versus WCW. How do these current storylines stack up to those classic storylines?
That's not fair. The reason why they don't, one, because with the Attitude Era, it was also the Jackass era of television, the Jerry Springers. So everything on TV was like that, right? And then when TV kind of calmed down, wrestling calmed down. But like back then, everybody had a story. If you go back and look at like Wrestling 98, everybody had a story. So my argument, a lot of times with the Ruthless Aggression kids, they will try to go back and forth with the Attitude Era kids and say their era was better. Where, right. and the whole thing is the work rate, the matches were better. Okay, they may have been, but we as Attitude Era kids and babies didn't care about work rate. We wanted to turn on the TV, hear what Stone Cold was going to say, hear what Rock was going to say. Shoot, even with Sable, Lita, Trish, see what they was going to do. We wanted to see, Al Snow and Hardcore Holly entertained us with a match in the Mississippi River. And that's the stuff that people don't talk about. We don't talk about the undercard of the Ruthless Aggression era too much. So I don't think, it's fair. Even with the WCW, you had the NWO going, but then you also had DDP, trying to be the people's champion. You had Raven and his flock, Eddie Guerrero and the LWO. You had all of these stories, and everybody was hitting on 100 because it was all storyline based. And that's my issue with WWE a lot of times now, wrestling in general. The wrestling itself, the in-wearing product doesn't always sell. Character matters, because if you give somebody a good character, they're going to be memorable. Sure, you can go out there and put on a bunch of 5-star matches. This is where Daniel Bryan figured it out. He was always like one of the best wrestlers in the company, but when he came with the Yes movement, that's when he was able to print his own money. Daniel Bryan just coming out there, come on, let's go, and putting people in the label lock, no. But Daniel Bryan coming out there doing Yes, he was somebody that he's the underdog, and he made people relate, and that was on Austin Rock levels at that time.
Dude, that really was. I remember being in New Orleans for that WrestleMania where everybody kind of knew it was his time, and he's about to win the title, right? And I could not get tickets to that thing, man. I couldn't get tickets to that event, but I was walking down on Canal Street during that time, and dude, like all in New Orleans, it was yes, yes, yes. Like they're going to bars and yes, yes, yes. And like I remember it, and I wanted to be a part of it, and everybody wanted to be a part of it. So I think you're absolutely right. During that time, it was remarkable. Okay, so we've talked about in the past, right? In your opinion, what's the greatest era in professional wrestling? What was the greatest era of professional wrestling?
Man, such a tough question. I'll say I struggle between the Attitude Era and the Golden Era, because the Golden Era is what kicked off. That's when Vince McMahon made wrestling household, and he went like, I'm not, Ted Turner, I'm in the wrestling business, and he was in the entertainment business. That rock and roll era, that rock and wrestling era, that's what kind of kicked it off. Without that, we don't get nothing else, right? If that doesn't work, we don't get the Attitude Era, the New Generation era. And I know a lot of people may not be big New Generation era fans, but it was still a vital part, because if Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart aren't able to carry the torch and really hold things together and keep things, above head, then we don't get to the Attitude Era,
You
But
spitting, man. You spitting.
yeah, so I struggle with that. But if I had to choose, I'm gonna slightly go with the Golden Era, the Hogan and the Savage and the Warrior.
That's a beautiful era, my man.
I'm a big, logo mark, so I love all the classic, the WrestleMania, the Royal Rumble, the Survivor Series, the SummerSlam, and even the King of the Ring logos. I love them.
That was a beautiful era, man. Okay, now, this is where this interview's kicked off, right? This is how it happened. I need to know from you. All right, whose faces are carved on your professional wrestling Mount Rushmore?
So you want me, the ones I put out, right?
Yeah, yeah. You can talk about the ones you put out.
Yeah, so for the men's, for the people who haven't seen it yet, for the men, it's Hulk Hogan, The Rock, Bret Hart, and Daniel Bryan. For the women, it's Alundra Blaze, Naomi, Trish Stratus, and Sasha Banks.
Sasha Banks? Wow.
These are, and the reason, so here's the reason. I can have a professional Mount Rushmore. It's always tough. I'd rather sit down and really, take time, and you gotta, so much factors, right? But like, all right, off the top of my head, if I had to do a WWE professional one, it would be Bruno, Hogan, John Cena, and The Rock. That would be my professional wrestling, my professional WWE.
Okay.
more. But what I did was I chose my favorites who gave me moments that literally sent chills, right?
Mm,
So Hulk Hogan was the first person that I was a huge fan of. I know he said some things. I have like different thoughts about it than everybody else does, right? Forgiveness is key.
mm,
Bret Hart was the next guy in line, and Bret was the guy who, like, when I had video games, you couldn't play against Bret Hart. You know, he was the next guy who's like my next favorite. Then there was The Rock, who everybody wanted to be like, and he was like the first person like, oh yeah, we black guy, and then Daniel Bryan was the one who came along, and I was like, this dude is my favorite wrestler. I'm putting him above Hogan and Bret. And I never thought that would happen because I felt like I could relate to him, like his love for the business and that passion, and just to see like how this business was taken away from him. He came back and reinvented himself. Same thing with the women. Alundra Blaze, first favorite wrestler, first favorite women's wrestler. Trish Stratus, favorite. I feel like she's the greatest of all time, the best of both worlds. If you want somebody who's a diva and somebody who's a good women's wrestler, it's Trish Stratus. Naomi, there was nothing like that WrestleMania 33 moment, her winning the title, her being black representation. Sasha Banks, I struggled between Sasha and Bianca, but I gave the edge to Sasha for me because I was like, she's somebody. I watched her. She's like Roman Reigns for me. Both of them, when they were there, was just like, okay. But when she left and came back with the blue hair, she was 20 times better, and the character was better. And that's the reason, watching her help carry the WWE in the pandemic with Bayley and Roman, I thought was amazing.
So Sasha makes it on that list. No Charlotte Flair.
So on my professional list, in my WWE professional list, it would probably be Mae Young, Alundra Blaze, Trish Stratus, Charlotte Flair.
Okay, so in that list, it'd be Charlotte over Sasha.
See, that's tough though, right?
Because yeah, that's tough.
All right, probably only because I would throw in the title reigns. Until last year, thought when it was all said and done, Charlotte would be the greatest women's wrestler ever. I had to dial back because the way Bianca's coming, she got competition. When you look at both of them, just natural athletes, natural abilities, but even like when I produced the interview with Charlotte Flair, she put over Bianca, and she said she put over Bianca and Rhea Ripley, talking about their greatness and just loving this next set of women that's coming in the business, and Bianca's like Kurt Angle. She came into the business and just took it and grabbed everything, all she could get from it, and understand how it goes.
I would say this is for me, right? Just personally, I'll admit something right now.
I always love these conversations.
Charlotte and Sasha Banks, that rivalry put women's wrestling on a different plane for me. Up until that time, it's been a very long time since I looked forward to a match between two women. I'm talking about looked forward to, right? Like you actually are waiting in anticipation for the match and caring about the outcome, like for real. It wasn't until those two really got into it and you could see the wrestling was everything that you wanted, right? You had the diva aspect too, but the wrestling was almost everything that you could possibly want. And it was kind of marketed the right way. It was set up the right way. And it was just beautiful. And those two, that was the first time I actually like looked at that and cared. Did that happen for you a little bit, or was it way before that you had matches like that?
It was way before that, to be honest with you. I really jumped heavier into women's wrestling probably around 2012. And that's when I really started like looking at other promotions. Like this is when I'm, starting, really getting my feet wet with the Wrestling Wrealm. And, I was watching Mia Yim when she was at Ring of Honor and Real Championship Wrestling in Baltimore and MCW Pro Wrestling in Maryland. But then there was, that's when I really started like finding Shimmer and Shine and different programs like that. And as I move forward, I've realized, okay, if I want good women's wrestling, I kind of got to look out at WWE for it, unfortunately. And watching them come up through the ranks. I spoke with Mercedes Martinez before she went to WWE, and I told her years ago, I said, my dream match is you and Charlotte. And I was disappointed when she left because I was like, man, we never got that match, and I've always thought, because like Mercedes is just a legend. It's like Sarah Del Rey, watching her and Mia Yim back in the day. And unfortunately, I mean, I respect, she was working there in a coaching role, but Sarah Del Rey and Natalia was like the match that people wanted to see. And I was like, can't they do that like in a performance center? They only just cut the cameras on it. Just that basketball game they talk about with Team USA.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
just give them that match, But yeah, so I've always, been a fan. But I will say, I said this last week on my show, Charlotte and Sasha, we need that match at WrestleMania. We've had them in triple threat and four-way matches together, but when you look at the history, you've had Austin and Rock, you've had Brett and Shawn, you had Hogan and Savage, Hogan and Warrior, Hogan and Andre. We need Sasha versus Charlotte in a one-on-one match at WrestleMania for the sake of their rivalry. We even had Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. We need that.
Yeah.
That would be my like if I'm booking, you give me the pencil because I don't book in pen. You give me the pencil. I'm penciling in Sasha to go all the way to WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, win it, challenge Charlotte, and she beats Charlotte for her first WrestleMania victory.
Okay, let me ask this question. We gave out your Mount Rushmore, and you put The Rock in, right?
Yep.
So, do you believe there's any black men, right, who would make somebody's Mount Rushmore outside of The Rock?
Yeah, Bobby Lashley. I think you look at the legitimacy of him. You also look at that title reign. That title reign was legit. You can make the argument about Kofi Kingston that Kofi had a feel good run. Let's call it for what it was, right? His run was more about thank you for all your faithfulness. We're gonna put you in matches, even though we're not gonna like really book the stories because Roman was there, but we're gonna put you in these key matches, right? That's what Kofi's was about. Lashley was like, okay, we want to show you dominate. He dominated Kofi. He beat Drew. He, his matches was more about showcasing him. So that's where even Goldberg, that was the other one, beating Goldberg. So that's what his match. So I think he will be on the Mount Rushmore. Kofi for obvious reasons, just the simple fact he was the first black African born WWE champion. Ron Simmons, you look at the history of him being the first black WCW champion. Junkyard Dog would be on some people's Mount Rushmore, considering the history at one point more over than Hogan. That's what people don't talk about. Him and Ernie Ladd was tearing it up in the South, but during the territory days. My shout out to my buddy Glenn, my big bro. He would always tell me Ernie Ladd would say, "I'd rather fight a male than make love to a woman." But Ernie Ladd was like one of the most biggest, nastiest heels. So he would be in. So those are some of the people I would see on some Mount Rushmores. Work rate wise, Shelton Benjamin. If somebody who wanted to go, talk about pound for pound, one of the best wrestlers, most legit wrestlers, I think he would be on one. Manager wise, we got to give MVP his flowers for what he's done recently, just to be able to restore Bobby Lashley's career and make the Hurt Business. At one point, they always dripped in gold. I want to see him get used again. But so those are some of the ones I have that would make some people's Mount Rushmore.
Dude, you're about to make me go away from the planned questions for a second, man, because the Hurt Business, not being a staple for like a decade bothers me.
I understand why, and the real Dwayne Allen had to break it down for me. Sometimes you need to get one through the door first, right? And it sucks because this always happens with us. You got to get one through the door, and then you bring everybody else in. And you also you didn't want Lashley to look weak. And this was, as much as we may not like it, the fact that he went into WrestleMania, he beat Drew without the Hurt Business, and then went on that run without him, it made him look better and more of a dominant champion, as opposed to, having the title and always having to cheat to win.
Mm. That's facts. That's facts. I give you that. I give you that. But honestly, okay, so I give you that. My question is,
Now, if I'm booking, I ain't doing it that way. I'm gonna still have it
okay,
with the Hurt Business, but just trying to put on Bruce Pritchard and them booking hat. That's the way I see it.
could he have still like, continue to dominate without okay, let's say he had the let's say they stayed together and he
Mhm.
did the match and they put some parameters around the match where they couldn't interfere and he just beat him outright. Wouldn't
That's
that still help?
that's the way I would have did it.
Okay.
You know, that's
Okay.
the way I would have did it.
Man. Okay. So, all right. I'll ask this question. I'll try to be like straight with it, right? Do you
Mhm.
believe this current crop of black athletes are on equal playing field with anyone on the roster where they're being judged entirely on their talent and marketability, right? And they're being given opportunities according to that.
Ooh, that's the tough one. I think with the women they are, when you look at Bianca and Sasha,
Mm,
I think they are. Even Naomi to an extent. I know people may not agree, but I think they're being judged on their talent. The men still leave a lot desired. I'm still like, all right,
mm,
let's just wait and see. I'm waiting to see what they do with Xavier Woods
okay.
because he's looking like he's checking boxes that ain't been checked, and I always felt the way he's like this recent run, who knows? Maybe he can be the WWE champion. Maybe he can be that. And he's a super intellectual guy. He may be smaller, but he's not necessarily a big hot flyer. So that's what I want to see. But it's still hard to say. I think it's always going to be there. But I will say WWE is doing a much better job than AEW.
Really?
Oh, most definitely. When's the last time you seen a black person challenge for the championship over there, right? You got Powerhouse
Mm.
Hobbs. Well, he might be a little bit green. He might not be ready, but the same way you're booking Jade, you can book him. Jade is being booked in a way that's protecting because while she's still learning the business, she's not going out. She's out there dominating, but you're not forcing her into the title picture with Britt Baker. Even though you can make the argument that you put the title on Jade and she's gonna be must see TV just doing physique alone. So that's where I'm at with that. I just feel like they had Jay Lethal, but let's just wait and see because we've been waiting to see it. And from they tried to make a big deal about Red Velvet challenging for the women's championship on Rampage, but everybody knew she wasn't gonna win. So there's certain times when you look at it like, okay, they're not gonna win. Don't try to sell me on something I already know they're not gonna win.
That's facts. So you brought up AEW.
Hmm.
And that's a great transition into what I want to ask next, right? And you
Uh,
brought up Jay Lethal as well. He's made the appearance. What about the AEW? Have they caught up with the WWE yet? Have they surpassed them in some people's minds? Where are they right now?
they're not even 10%. They're not even 10%. And
I didn't
here's
mean to respond like that, but wow.
so you gotta think, right? WWE's been around for decades. When the WWE show goes off, if you miss it, it's so easy to get, right?
Mm.
Whether it's Peacock, I know a lot of people don't like Peacock, me included. I want the network back. But either way, you can go right to the network. You can go right to the YouTube channel, social media. Boom, it's right there. You step outside, you go into different stores. It's just random WWE stuff, right? You go in a dollar store, you may see a WWE book. I got WWE Uno cards. Um, so that's the stuff that people don't want to admit. Like AEW isn't that accessible. It's really a glorified indie promotion with the $1 million budget, $1 million+ budget. They still have a lot of ways to go. They're not even on the level of WCW. WCW at one point when you would go into the market, you would see a TV Guide magazine. You saw with 3 WWE superstars covers and 3 WCW covers. You had the WCW magazine back in the day. AEW doesn't have that. Yeah, they rely a lot on PWI and Dave Meltzer, but they don't have. It's a lot of little things that it takes that they don't have. When you go to WWE programming and you go to the shows, you see all the hoopla, shabazz, all the charity work, the Make a Wish, all of that stuff. AEW don't have none of that. So that's the reason why I say they're not even 10%. Yeah, the wrestling, you can make an argument. Maybe the wrestling is better is to each his own because that's subjective, right? It depends if you want that technical wrestling or if you some spots best. Some of the stuff like that last thing with Cody and Andrade, I thought was unnecessary for regular television. But even like you got somebody like Lance.
Are you talking about the burning up of the table thing?
Yeah, unnecessary. Absolutely unnecessary. Andrade, he was on fire. Like that's really making him ready to fight. So with that, you look at it and like, okay, yeah, that like I said, just not necessary. So that's where I'm in with them. Like a lot of stuff, they still have a lot to go. They got action figures, that's nice. They have television, that's nice. They're really not in control of their product. TNT says you can't book. We wish we would have known about Sting. So that shock factor, that's what wrestling fans live off of. Must see TV. You turn on, oh man, that's what you think about how many conversations. Did you see what happened on Raw? Rick Rude showed up, or Nitro. Rick Rude was on Raw and Nitro at the same time. They can't do stuff like that. So it's the little things that the pay-per-view matches. I do like that they do showcase some of the best talent, even though the matches can be too long. But other than that, no, they're not even close. They're still on a level of Impact when it comes to that level. They're doing a good job though, but they're a professional wrestling company and WWE is sports entertainment.
So if you're in a particular situation where you're with the WWE, you see what's happening with AEW. Are you not worried at this point?
Not at all. There's nothing to worry about. You're still going to be the destination. People may try to act like it, but they still, I would think they're paying more. I could be wrong. I would think, maybe outside the bigger stars, but you're still the WWE. At the end of the day, nothing comes close to WrestleMania. So people can say all they want. I never want to go there and this, that, and the other. Trust me. Triple H shows up at MJF's door and say, look, so I kind of got the book and I want to bring you over to New York and I got these plans for you. You think he's gonna say no? And then he calls Stone Cold Steve Austin. They can call in guys like Austin, Rock, Taker. Hey man, you might want to go over there. Shoot, Flair, but he's mad at them right now. But remember, he was in TNA trying to recruit AJ Styles to the WWE. He told him you need to go get with Vince. He was in WCW saying the same thing about Sting. So yeah, people they can talk all they want, but WWE is still the destination. And given an opportunity, those guys or gals will go over there. Yeah, Adam Cole left and this, that, and the other. But in the right situation, they would be over there.
Wow. Okay. So now we're getting to that phase of the interview where we do quick hitters, right? So here's how it goes. I'm going to you're gonna give me a number. So we have 14 questions here, right? And you can ask any number between 1 to 14, right? And when you ask when you pick the number, I ask the question, and you give me the first answer that comes to your mind, right? First thought that comes to your mind. These are quick. So here we go. You got 1 through 14. Pick a number, and we'll start there.
7.
Here we go. Give me. This is for you, right? For Mr. Brian H. Waters, a dream interview, past, present, living, or passed on. Dream interview for you.
Hulk Hogan.
Awesome.
Without any PR people.
Okay.
It could be fully uncensored.
So an uncensored, uncut, raw interview with Hulk Hogan. In his prime or right now?
Now. I want it now. Might as well, we can talk about everything.
Bad. Okay. Love it. Because you're right. In his prime, we wouldn't get all the controversial stuff that we have now. So you want the uncut.
The thing is, I wouldn't even bury him. People probably would want me to. I was just asking straight up, why you didn't do like Shawn Michaels?
Bet. Okay. Cool. All right. Give me another number.
8. We'll go with Lamar and my quarterback.
Bet. Okay.
My quarterback.
Dream matchup. any wrestler all time. Any two wrestlers all time. Your dream matchup.
Man, oh man. Shoot, that's a tough one. But for the sake you said it comes to mind right away, I'll put the one that we talked about on Mack Mania last week, Stone Cold versus John Cena.
Mm.
I think it would be I think those two, the promos leading up to it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I was just about to ask you that. Do we get promo on everything or just the wrestling match? I want
The promos. That's what makes the match. Yeah.
bet.
Yeah, and I think it would be phenomenal.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the one I'm gonna go with. I of course now more come, but I'm gonna go with that one.
All right. Cool. Here we go. So we got so far we've done 7. We've done 8. We got what 5 more that we'll do. We do always have. So we got 4 more. What you got?
Number one.
Number 1. Here we go. This is a pick an icon series, right? So you have to pick an icon. You have 2 that I'm gonna give you, right? In your prime, you have to pick the one that you love the most,
Mhm.
right? Or you care about the most. Here we go. This is number 1. You can see any of them in their prime. One more time. Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior. Which one?
Hulk Hogan.
Wow.
I've never
Wow.
seen neither one of. Well, he was on my Mount Rushmore. He's one of my favorites of all time.
Okay.
But yeah,
So it'll be Hulk Hogan. All right, cool.
Mhm.
So it'll be Hulk Hogan. Good. Give me another number.
2.
Okay, we're still in this series then. So Goldberg or Sting, you can see any of them in their prime.
Sting
Again.
easily.
Whoa!
Favorite WCW wrestler.
over Goldberg, over that whole streak era.
Oh, no, definitely. I didn't care about the streak. I was rooting for Kevin Nash, just Starcade. But yeah, give me Sting in the NWO Wolfpack.
Wow.
You know, a
Okay.
lot of people, like, to me, that was like one of my favorite versions, even though he was high, but it was like, and my dream match was kind of ruined with him and Brett. It was just like, man, like Halloween Havoc 98. When you look at that, right? Remember, like the back end of the card, Rick versus Scott Steiner, Scott Hall versus Kevin Nash, Goldberg versus DDP, Hogan versus Warrior, Sting versus Bret Hart. All those matches were supposed to be great. Like that's the Starcade level, but it was like,
It was timing with everything, man. We caught some of those at the wrong time.
yeah, we didn't need Hogan and Warrior again. Hogan wanted to get that win back. That's all it was about. I don't want me, brother.
I felt like he felt that because he talked about this. He felt like he put over the wrong person and passed the torch to the wrong person.
Yeah.
And wow. All right. Cool. So so far we've done 7, we've done 8, we've done 1, we've done 2. All right.
Yeah.
We got
who should have came in the game yesterday. Number 9, Justin Tucker.
but okay. Here we go. A person loves wrestling it's a scenario. A person loved wrestling in the past. They were in love with wrestling in the past. Give them one storyline that would bring them back now.
Oh, that's a good one. Man. Well, that's tough because I'm not confident. I guess I would say come Roman Reigns and this thing with him and Brock, and you still don't know which way Paul Heyman is going. I think that could get him hooked because they would be walking around saying, "Acknowledge me."
Okay. So you think the Roman Reigns storyline is enough to bring somebody back into the fold?
He's the best thing in wrestling, so I'm going all in.
Bet. Okay. You know what? As somebody, because this is a little bit me. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's a little bit me, right? And the thing that kind of got me to start looking up stuff again, paying attention again, caring again for real, was the fact that the news broke kind of on Twitter that Roman Reigns had turned heel, which is what everybody was waiting for anyway, right?
Yep.
And when that happened, I was like, okay, cool. Let's see. I'm still wait. Let's see how this works out. But then when he started popping up more and more and more, and the storyline, with the brothers came in with the Usos, I was like, oh, this has legs. Paul Heyman, I'm like, yo, this has legs. So yeah, that might do it. Okay, cool. We've done 5 so far.
Yeah.
Give me 2 more. Or give me 1.
Let's go 11.
11. Here we go. The most shocking moment that you remember in wrestling. You know, you said it earlier. Wrestling's all about those shocking moments, those big moments. What's the most shocking moment in wrestling for you?
Oh man, most shocking. It would have to be sorry, my son. Good night. Um man. I'm trying to think of a moment like that I saw versus like I could say NWO, right? But I didn't see that. I saw it the next night on
Mm.
Nitro.
Mm.
Um shoot. I've seen some. I'm just trying to This is tough because I'm just trying to think like I've definitely you know what? I really don't want to give it to this guy, but I'm gonna have to. It might be the pipe bomb.
Really?
I'm gonna have to go with the pipe bomb, and the only reason is because you never heard anybody say John Laurinaitis' name, right?
Mm.
And being able to, like, right after that, I remember I picked up the phone, I called Dwayne. Did you hear what he just said? You know, so that might be like one of the most shocking moments that I can like recall. Even yeah, because even all right, so funny story. Like I would say Austin turning on like joining McMahon, but if I got a quick second, funny story that night, my grandmother ordered WrestleMania 17 for me. The cable company, and this was about 5 months before she passed away. Her at the time her leg was amputated, so she was staying in the living room. So she asked the cable company to put put WrestleMania on the basic cable, not the digital cable. I don't remember when they had digital cable versus basic. So when they put it on the basic cable, I mean digital cable, it had like you couldn't see it, but it was like you could hear everything. So by this time during the main event, I'm sitting there and I'm watching it, but I'm like listening to it, and I'm like, wait, did Jim Ross just say Austin Joy McMahon? No, that ain't happened. Wait, that sounds like okay. So Stone Cold won the belt. He's with Vince, and you hear JR. So I just hear it, but I can't see nothing. I just see like the TV scrambling. So the next day I went to school, had everything confirmed. So yeah, but that was probably one of the most shocking. I was trying to think of like some Money in the Bank cash-ins, but none of them. I don't know, like they were cool, but yeah, I think the pipe bomb might be it. And maybe no, because even when The Rock was announced to host WrestleMania, it wasn't shocking. You know, the pipe bomb was shocking for the simple fact that you just didn't know when he got to talking, you didn't know what was coming next. You know, saying
Mm.
in the belt at Ring of Honor, and that whole night felt and like leading into the pay-per-view, it felt real.
Mm.
So yeah, I'm gonna give
Yo,
it.
I I'm I'm probably for that same one. I'm probably going with the one that you said you didn't want to do because you didn't see it live.
Uh-huh.
It's the Hulk Hogan going heel.
Okay.
That was the one for me that really made me go, this ain't real. That's crazy. Like made me go run into stuff to confirm it. You know
Mm,
what I mean? Like
yeah.
running to people, any source I could possibly get to. I was running to it to try to confirm that situation. And then it's funny, I ain't really actually see it till years later. I heard you got all the ramifications, right? Just like you, but I didn't really see it until years later. And seeing it, bro, big situation.
What the
Okay,
pipe
cool.
bomb?
What'd you say?
What the pipe bomb?
No, I'm saying,
Oh, Hogan turn heel?
yeah, Hogan turned the heel.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, Hogan turned the heel was the one for me. All right, we got one more, Doc. We got one more number.
All right, let's go 14.
Okay, 14,
These are good
14.
questions, man. I like them.
Appreciate you, man. All right, what would your wrestler name be if you were a wrestler?
Mr. Main Event. My former Elias, Mr. Main Event, Brian H. Waters.
Cool, love it. Man, we appreciate you so much, yo. Here's some of the questions that we didn't hit on, right? It would have been pick an icon for it. Who would you want to see in their prime one more time? The Four Horsemen versus D Generation X. Andre the Giant versus Coco Beware. Favorite female wrestler of all time, the first wrestling toy you ever owned.
I had
And
those
we all
wrestling buddies.
you said the wrestling buddies?
Well, I had them. I don't. They might not be like the first toy. First toy, I'm pretty sure it was like an action figure my uncle gave me. But I
Mm,
definitely had wrestling buddies.
bet. The other one would have been so we did talk about dream matchup. The other one would have been one storyline that you would bring back. Um, and then what's another one? Most controversial moment in wrestling. Oh, and then here's one: the athlete that you believe was most screwed over by any brand.
Ooh,
Right. So that would have been a question as well. Man, we thank you so much. I want to know a little bit about. So I actually met you. I heard about you first from your testimony, and I thought this was the coolest thing ever, bro. So when you kicked off breaking through glass ceilings, you kicked it off with your story, like
yeah,
your legit story, like your testimony, basically. And I dove into that. I listened to that first.
appreciate it.
Um, I thank you, man. Like, but I never thought about that approach to starting off a podcast, which is
Mhm.
telling you before I dive into everybody else's story and before I let you know about everybody else. This is me and this is my story and where I came from. And so you kicked off on breaking through glass ceilings with that, right?
Mhm.
But from that point, you brought on some of the like best people in all of sports journalism, and who are people who are just doing great things in their lives, right? Talk to us a little bit about breaking through glass ceilings, and then tell people where they can find it.
Yeah, I was on somewhat of a hiatus. This is I gotta get back into it, just now with working Wrestling Realm, the ringer, ringer being obviously every day, the shoot job. It's just trying to balance things. But the I really the idea was to share my network with the world. One day, shout out to my former manager at Johns Hopkins, Marin Kadeen, we was in Atlanta and one morning we just, walk into the conference and we was talking. I said, I think I'm gonna start a podcast with but it wouldn't be a sports podcast, it would be me sharing people's journeys. She's like, oh yeah. I said, yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. So then I remember I went home and I thought about it, put together like a wish list and put together a whole promotional plan because that's what I used to do at Hopkins, and I learned how to put together promotional plans. And that's when I came up with that idea. And the first one I was able to introduce my friends collectively, we known as the Fab Five with internal, with episode one was two was Kelsey Nicole Nelson, three was Brandon Williams, four was Renee Washington, five was Ashley Baker. And it was just the idea of like just telling their stories. And it was funny because like now I listen, I was like, well, maybe I wouldn't have titled it this way, or maybe I could have, you evolve. And when really Brandon's interview was me testing how I was going to do everything. I said, hey, you do this test, and if it works out, we'll just leave it. Sure enough, it did. But yeah, I've been blessed to really, it gave me an opportunity to reconnect. We talk to people a lot of times through text message and social media and DMs where, like now we're getting an opportunity to actually talk because we're doing a show. And that's what I was able to do with breaking through glass ceilings. And, it's been a blessing to be able to connect with my friends and family.
Yeah, I've actually loved the format of that show. Where so how are people finding that show now? How can they find it? Where can they get it?
Yeah, it's on all platforms. YouTube, really, it's all audio. I keep the cameras off just so people can kind of relax. But it's all audio on uh, Apple, Spotify, what else? Yeah, Apple, Spotify, Anchor. I'm looking right at. I'm going to say Spreaker, not Spreaker. Stitcher, and
Okay.
YouTube. I heart
Awesome.
Pandora podcast as well.
Awesome. Yo, so we also we are a Christian podcast, and we always ask this question, for anybody, right? Because we just want to support them and keep them encouraged. So for you, we always ask, how can we pray for you? How can we keep you lifted, keep you in our minds, right? As you're moving forward throughout the business.
Oh man, I really appreciate that. As a Christian myself, I always pray for mental peace. With everything going on, it's just a matter of trying to keep your mentals and everything. So I definitely appreciate that.
Absolutely. Man, we appreciate you for being here. It's really, really fun, man, diving into wrestling and talking about it, bro. We've actually dove into some real cool stuff.
Yeah,
So yeah, man, it was fun. I appreciate you being here, sir.
thank you, man. I really appreciate it. I had fun. Like I obviously know how it is to be, putting together everything, trying to get everything situated, doing the interviews and stuff. I really had a good time here.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you. All right, y'all. Look, go out and follow Mr. Brian H. Waters. You can see at the bottom. Let me put it on the screen one more time so they know what the deal is. Go ahead and give him a follow on Twitter. Great follow on Twitter. He dives into all kind of stuff, but definitely you're gonna get some of the best wrestling information. Period. Right. And some of the best opinions in wrestling. So we appreciate you for being here. Thank y'all so much for the people who are here. Somebody said, "Great interview." We
Thank
appreciate you.
Yeah, he did do a phenomenal job.
Nah, you did as well. All right, y'all have a great day. We love you. God bless you. Have a phenomenal day.